I'm Grant, 32, and I just realized the woman I was about to marry was playing me the entire time. Let me give you some background. My father, Robert Caldwell, built Caldwell Enterprises from nothing. He started with a small construction crew and turned it into a real estate empire that spans the East Coast. He wasn't just about building skyscrapers. He was about building communities. He instilled that ethic in me and my younger brother, Liam, 30. We didn't get trust funds and fancy cars. We got summers on job sites, late nights poring over blueprints, and the constant pressure to live up to his legacy. He wanted us to earn it, to understand the value of hard work and the people who make it all happen. And when I say hard work, I mean it. My dad never gave us a free pass. He'd say, "If you're going to lead, you better know how to swing a hammer." He was right. I learned every aspect of the business, from the ground up, literally. So when I started making good money in my late 20s, I didn't think twice about spending it on the woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with, Serena. Serena. Where do I even begin? I met her 2 years ago at a charity gala. She was stunning, tall, with fiery red hair, and a smile that could melt glaciers. She had this effortless sophistication, the kind that made heads turn without her even trying. We talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing. She laughed at my jokes, listened intently to my stories, and made me feel seen. I fell hard, fast, and I'll admit it, I liked spoiling her. She was used to it. If she casually mentioned wanting a designer bag, it was on her arm the next week. Weekend getaways to the Hamptons? Booked. Dinner at the trendiest restaurant in the city? Tables waiting? It wasn't about showing off or trying to keep her around, at least that's what I told myself. I genuinely believed she deserved the best. In my warped perception, she was the best. To her credit, Serena played the part of the perfect fiancée flawlessly. She'd light up whenever I surprised her with something, call me her provider, and gush to her friends about how lucky she was. "Grant's so generous," she'd say, her voice dripping with syrupy sweetness. And yeah, I ate it up. I wanted to be that guy. Then everything changed. My dad passed away a few months ago. Unexpectedly, quickly, brutally. A sudden heart attack. 1 minute he was here, the next, gone. Losing him wasn't just a personal blow. It ripped a hole in the fabric of my being. He wasn't just my father. He was my mentor, my confidant, the guy who showed me how to navigate the complex currents of life. He was Caldwell Enterprises. He was my life. I was drowning in grief, trying to figure out what life looked like without him. At the same time, Liam and I had to step up and take over the business. The weight of the company, the employees, the legacy, it all landed on our shoulders overnight. It was a lot. Serena, well, she didn't seem to notice. Or if she did, she didn't care. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she was just giving me space. Serena wasn't exactly the nurturing type, but I figured everyone processes grief differently. Some people need to be held, some people need to be left alone. Except it wasn't just that she wasn't supportive. It was a shift in her focus. Barely 2 weeks after the funeral, she started asking questions about Caldwell Enterprises. And not the casual "how's work going, honey" kind of questions. These were pointed, detailed, business-focused. "When do you officially take over?" she'd ask, her eyes narrowed. "Who's on the board now? Do you have full control? Is Liam going to try to take a bigger piece of the company?" At first, I answered without thinking much of it. But the more she asked, the more it felt wrong. She didn't ask how I was holding up, if I needed anything, or even mention my dad unless it was in the context of the business. All she seemed to care about was what came next, and not for us, but for her. The questions weren't just weird, they were relentless. I'd come home exhausted from balancing work and grief, and she'd pounce. "How much equity do you have now? Do you have the final say on contracts, or does that go through Liam? What about expansion? Are you leading that now? It was like she'd been waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, she wasn't wasting any time. I started noticing other things too. The way she talked about Caldwell Enterprises, like it was her golden ticket. The way she'd casually mention our projects to her friends at dinner parties, dropping hints about expanding into new markets. I'd catch her smiling to herself like she knew something I didn't. But what really caught my attention was how she started throwing Liam's name into conversations. More and more. Liam is so business savvy, she'd say, with this strange gleam in her eye. You two must make such a great team. At first, I thought she was just being supportive of my relationship with my brother, but something about her tone felt calculated. It wasn't like she was praising Liam, it was like she was evaluating him. The change wasn't subtle anymore. Serena had always known what I did for a living, but she'd never cared about the details. Before, she'd glaze over when I started talking shop. Now, it was all she wanted to talk about. Whenever we were together, the conversation somehow ended up circling back to work. My role, Liam's role, the board, the projects. One night, we were sitting in the living room of our downtown condo. She was scrolling through her phone, seemingly absorbed in whatever influencer was hawking teeth-whitening kits that day. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know, I was reading this article about succession planning." My blood ran cold. She continued, not looking up from her phone. It said family businesses can get really messy if roles aren't clearly defined. Do you and Liam ever fight about who's in charge? I glanced at her, trying to read her expression, but she didn't even look up from her phone. She knew exactly what she was doing. Not really, I said, keeping my tone casual. We both know our strengths, and we work together. It's not a competition, she nodded. Like that answer satisfied her, but I could see the gears turning in her head. It wasn't the first time she'd brought up Liam lately. It seemed like she was more interested in his role in the company than in anything I was doing. The turning point came a few days later. I was in my home office, trying to catch up on some paperwork. Amelia came in, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You've been working so hard lately," she said, her tone sweet, but oddly deliberate. She handed me a cup and perched herself on the edge of the desk, her designer jeans straining against her perfectly sculpted thighs. The sight used to make my heart race. Now it just made my stomach churn. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying all the weight on your shoulders?" I shrugged. "It comes with the territory." She leaned in a little closer, her perfume, some obscenely expensive floral concoction, filling the room. "But doesn't it bother you that Liam gets to share the load without dealing with the same pressure? I mean, you're the face of the company now. He's just assisting, right?" That hit a nerve. Not because she was right, but because she was trying to plant seeds of doubt. About my brother, about my own capabilities. It was insidious. Liam and I had always been equals in the business. We had different strengths, different areas of expertise, but we were a team. Hearing her talk about him that way felt wrong. "Liam is not just assisting," I said, sharper than I intended. "We're a team." "Always have been." She pulled back, looking surprised. But she didn't drop it. "I just think you deserve more credit, that's all. You're the one running the show now." I didn't respond, but the whole conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't like Serena to talk about Liam that way. If anything, she'd always been polite and respectful toward him. Now, it felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between us. Or maybe, just maybe, she was testing how much control I really had. After that, I couldn't stop noticing the little things she did. At corporate events, she'd position herself near the power players, laughing a little too loudly at their jokes, slipping into their conversations like she belonged there. At home, she'd casually ask about deals and contracts, and whenever Liam came up, she'd find a way to steer the conversation back to his role in the company. "Liam is so good with the investors, isn't he? You're lucky to have him." It was subtle, but it was there. A constant drip, drip of poison. The worst part was, I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Liam would have called her out immediately, and I wasn't ready to go there yet. I wasn't ready to admit to him or to myself that I'd been so blinded by lust that I couldn't see what was right in front of me. My friends didn't know her well enough to see the change, and I wasn't about to burden my mother while she was still grieving. So I kept it to myself, turning the pieces over in my head, trying to make sense of it all. One night, I decided to test her. Nothing big, just a casual comment to see how she'd react. We were having dinner, and I mentioned that a new project was running over budget. "It's going to be a headache," I said, spearing a piece of steak with my fork. The board's not happy, and Liam's been up to his ears in it. Her eyes lit up. She leaned forward. "Oh? What's the project?" "Just a residential development," I said, keeping my tone light. "But it's tied to a lot of other deals, so the pressure's on." "Sounds stressful," she said, trying to act nonchalant. "Are you the one who has to handle all that?" "Not really," I said. "Liam's taking the lead on this one. He's better at the big picture stuff." Her face didn't change, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She didn't press the issue, but the fact that she'd latched onto the project so quickly confirmed what I'd already suspected. She wasn't interested in me. She was interested in what I could give her, and if that wasn't me anymore. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out my next move. I didn't have concrete proof yet, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. I'd been played. The hardest part was reconciling the Serena I'd fallen for with the person she was becoming. When we first met, she'd been so warm, so genuine, or at least I thought she was. Now, it felt like everything she did was calculated, like she was playing a game I didn't even know I'd entered, but I wasn't about to let her win. If Serena thought she could manipulate me into giving her what she wanted, she was in for a rude awakening. I'd spent my whole life watching my dad navigate tough situations, and if there was one thing he taught me, it was how to spot a snake in the grass. He always said, "Son, trust your instincts. They're usually right." I decided then and there that I wasn't going to sit back and let her control the narrative. If she was playing a game, I was going to play it better. By the time I decided to test Serena, I wasn't questioning if her intentions were bad. I was questioning how far she'd go. How much would she betray for a chance at wealth and power? I spent a few days planning with Liam, crafting a scenario that would expose her true colors. We needed something airtight, something that would leave no room for plausible deniability. "We need to make it believable," Liam said during one of our late-night strategy sessions at his apartment. The air was thick with the aroma of stale coffee and desperation, something that would hit her where it matters most. Her vision of her future with the company. We decided to create a situation where my position in Caldwell Enterprises would appear less secure than she thought. Would she stick around out of some fabricated sense of loyalty, or would she immediately start looking for the next opportunity, the next rung on the ladder? "Think of it like Operation Serpent's Kiss," Liam said, a grim smile playing on his lips. The plan started with small hints in meetings where Serena was present. Liam would take on more prominent roles, presenting data, leading discussions, and generally acting more assertive. We arranged for board members to defer to him more often, and I deliberately stepped back from some high-profile decisions, feigning exhaustion and stress. Then came the bigger moves. I had our family lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, who was thankfully in on the plan, schedule several conspicuous meetings with Liam. They'd meet in Abernathy's office, conveniently located across the street from our condo, and I'd make sure Serena saw them coming and going. When Serena asked about the meetings, I'd be vague, mentioning something about succession planning and legal requirements. I even let her overhear a phone call where I argued with Abernathy about fairness and bloodlines. The change in her behavior was immediate and fascinating to watch. She started showing up at my office with lunch more often, pretending to be supportive, but her eyes would constantly drift to Liam's office across the hall, a hawk eyeing its prey. She'd ask casual questions about his schedule, his meetings, his plans for the weekend. "Is Liam going to that conference in Vegas? Maybe I should go too, just to support the company." One particularly telling incident occurred during a company cocktail party. I watched as Serena navigated the room with surgical precision, spending exactly enough time with each board member to seem interested but not desperate. It was a carefully orchestrated performance of feigned sincerity. But when Liam entered, her entire demeanor changed. She straightened her spine, tossed her hair, and positioned herself near his usual group, laughing a bit too loudly at their jokes, touching his arm more frequently. Classic signs of flirting that I'd once found charming when they were directed at me. Now, they just made me want to vomit. "Your brother has such a commanding presence," she said later that night, testing the waters as we drove home. The city lights blurred past the window, reflecting in her calculating eyes. "The board really respects him." I played my part perfectly, sighing and looking troubled. "Yeah, they do. Things are complicated right now." That was her cue. "Complicated? How? Is everything okay?" I waited a few days before dropping the real bomb. During dinner at our favorite restaurant, a place filled with memories that now tasted like ash, I told her I needed to share something important. "I need to be honest with you," I said, trying to sound vulnerable. The story we crafted was perfect. A legal technicality, a loophole buried deep in my father's will that would give Liam primary control of the company. "Remember how I told you my dad adopted me?" I said, watching her reaction carefully. "Well, it turns out that affects my inheritance rights. Liam's getting the majority share. He'll be CEO, and I'll be, well, more of a consultant." The change in her expression was subtle but unmistakable. Her eyes widened slightly, her smile froze, and for just a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. "But that's not fair," she protested. Though I noticed her objection seemed more about the situation than about me. "How can they do that?" "It's all legal," I said, shrugging. "Dad's lawyer was very specific about blood relatives. It's all in the fine print." I deliberately sounded defeated, like I was resigned to my fate. Over the next few days, Liam and I documented everything. Her texts to me became less frequent, while her interactions with Liam increased dramatically. She started finding reasons to visit his office, always dressed impeccably, always with some small gift or question that couldn't wait. "I just wanted to get your opinion on this design," she'd say, holding up a ridiculously expensive handbag. "You have such great taste. Do you think Grant would like it?" The most revealing moment came during a board meeting. Serena had never shown interest in attending these before, claiming they were too boring, but suddenly, she insisted on being there to support me through this difficult transition. Throughout the meeting, I watched as her eyes repeatedly drifted to Liam, especially when he was presenting. She'd hang on his every word, nodding approvingly, her body language practically screaming, "I'm available." Then, she started the subtle campaign to get closer to him. "I was thinking," she said one evening, after we'd returned from a particularly tense dinner with Liam, "maybe we should invite Liam over for dinner more often. He seems so stressed with all these new responsibilities. It would be good for him to relax." I agreed, playing the role of the supportive brother, while Liam played his part perfectly, being polite but not too encouraging, interested but not too available. It was like watching a chess match where we knew all the moves in advance. The real confirmation came through her phone. She'd gotten careless, leaving it unlocked while charging on the kitchen counter. Curiosity may have killed the cat, but in this case, it was about to bury the serpent. The messages to Liam were exactly what we expected. A calculated mix of flattery, veiled seduction, and professional admiration. "You're handling everything so well," one text read. "It must be a lot of pressure." "You're so strong." Another, "Your presentation today was impressive. You have such a natural leadership style. I'm really inspired." And then, the clincher. "If you ever need someone to talk to about all this, I'm here." Seriously, anything at all. Each message was carefully crafted to seem innocent while subtly laying the groundwork for something more. A shoulder to cry on, a confidant, a partner. Liam forwarded them all to me, maintaining our evidence trail. He was disgusted. "I can't believe she thinks I'm that stupid," he said, his voice tight with anger. But the most damning evidence came from her laptop. She'd left it open one day, and I saw her recent search history: inheritance rights, adopted children, challenging adoption, inheritance, dating company CEO, legal issues, how to impress a wealthy man, how to dress like a CEO's girlfriend. It was all falling into place. Serena wasn't just testing the waters, she was actively planning her transition from my fiancé to potentially Liam's partner, both personally and professionally. She was a chameleon, adapting to the changing landscape to maximize her own gain. "She's getting bolder," Liam told me over the phone one night. Today, she suggested we meet for coffee to discuss some ideas about the company. She emphasized that it should be just us so we can speak freely. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. The woman who'd spent 2 years convincing me she was the perfect partner was now methodically plotting her exit strategy, completely unaware that every move she made was being documented, analyzed, and used against her. The stage is set for the final act. Next week, we're hosting a family dinner. Board members, key employees, close family friends will all be there. Serena thinks it's to officially announce the changes in company leadership, to celebrate Liam's triumph and my gracious concession. She's probably already practicing her supportive fiancé face, the one that says I'm so proud of him, even though it's killing me inside. She has no idea it's actually going to be her unveiling, but not in the way she expects. All the evidence is ready. The text messages, the recorded conversations I'd started discreetly recording our interactions after the coffee incident, the surveillance footage from our office showing her repeated coincidental meetings with Liam. Everything has been compiled and prepared, ready to be presented. I'm not doing this out of pure revenge. Although, admittedly, the thought of watching her face crumble is admittedly appealing. This is about protecting our family's legacy and sending a message about loyalty and trust. My father dedicated his life to this company, and I won't let some gold-digging opportunist tear it apart. Sometimes the best way to deal with a snake is to let it think it's winning right up until the moment you reveal the trap. The dinner is in 3 days. Serena's already planning her outfit, probably thinking about how to position herself as the supportive fiancé during this difficult transition. She has no idea she's about to become the cautionary tale of Caldwell Enterprises. I'll update after the dinner. Something tells me it's going to be a night to remember. A night that will change everything. A night she'll regret for the rest of her life. The family dinner went exactly as planned. Maybe even better. It was a masterpiece of calculated deception and perfectly executed revelation. The kind of drama that would make Shakespeare blush. I want to share every detail because it was truly a night to remember. A night of reckoning. A night of comeuppance. The evening started at 7:00 p.m. at the Grandview Steakhouse, our family's favorite, in their private dining room. It was a place steeped in tradition, where my father had celebrated countless milestones, both personal and professional. The irony wasn't lost on me. Serena arrived looking stunning and ridiculously out of place in a new designer dress I'd bought her last month, a form-fitting, emerald green number that cost more than my first car. She was working the room like a seasoned politician, laughing a little too loudly, charming everyone with her practiced smile. If only they knew what was coming. If only they knew the viper they were coddling. The room was packed. The entire board of directors was there, along with key executives, close family friends, and even some of my father's oldest business partners. They all believed they were there to witness a smooth transition of power. They had no idea they were about to witness a public execution. Liam started the evening with a toast about our father's legacy and the company's future. He spoke eloquently about his vision for Caldwell Enterprises, his commitment to innovation, and his gratitude for the support of the board. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. I watched Serena's face as she practically glowed, hanging on his every word, her eyes sparkling with ambition. She was probably thinking she was about to witness the announcement that would secure her golden future, cementing her place as the First Lady of Caldwell Enterprises. Then, Liam's tone shifted. He paused, took a deep breath, and said, "There's something else I want to address tonight." He glanced around the room, his gaze lingering on Serena for a moment. "It's about loyalty, trust, and how some people aren't who they appear to be." A hush fell over the room. Serena's smile froze slightly. She reached for my hand under the table, probably trying to project an image of unity and support. I let her take it, knowing it would be the last time. I squeezed her hand gently, a gesture of farewell and disgust. I stood up next, phone in hand. The silence in the room was deafening. All eyes were on me. "Serena," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I think it's time we had a real conversation about your intentions." "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, but I could see the panic starting to creep into her eyes. The hunter was about to become the hunted. That's when I played the recording from her recent visit to Liam's office. I'd had our AITA team sync my phone to the room's sound system, ensuring everyone heard every sordid detail. Her voice filled the room, clear and damning, as she praised Liam's leadership, criticized me, and suggested that the two of them would make a great team. She sounded so sincere, so convincing, so utterly fake. Her parents, sitting across the table, looked horrified. Their faces paled, their eyes filled with disbelief. The facade of their perfect daughter was crumbling before their very eyes. That's not what it sounds like," she stammered, looking around frantically, desperately searching for an escape. "You're taking everything out of context." "Really?" I asked, raising my eyebrow. "How about this?" I pulled up her text messages on the projector screen, one by one, each one a nail in her coffin. "Your brother's way more suited to running the company. You're so strong, Liam. I'm always here for you if you need to talk. Maybe we should grab coffee sometime. Just the two of us. I have some ideas about the company that I think you'd be interested in." "Also out of context?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Or how about this? We should meet privately to discuss our future." "Was that out of context too, Serena?" Her father's face had turned deep red. His jaw was clenched, his hands shaking. He looked like he was about to explode. "Serena," he said, his voice dangerously low. "What is this?" "Daddy, no," she pleaded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "They're twisting everything. Grant's just jealous because Andrew is taking over the company." That's when Liam dropped the final bomb. "Actually," he said, his voice calm and steady, "I'm not taking over anything. Grant and I are equal partners, just as we've always been. The adoption story was a test. One you failed spectacularly." The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Serena's mother covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. Her father stood up abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. He looked at Serena with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. "We're leaving," he announced, his voice cold and hard. "Serena, get your things. Now." "But Dad, please." "Let me explain," she begged, her voice cracking with desperation. "Explain what?" he snapped. "How you tried to manipulate and betray the man you were going to marry. How you've humiliated our family in front of everyone we know." As they left, Serena tried one last time to reach me. She stumbled towards me, her eyes pleading. "Grant, please," she sobbed. "I love you. We can fix this." I cut her off, shaking my head. "No, Serena. We can't. You've shown me exactly who you are. There's no fixing that." She stood there for a moment, her face a mask of shock and despair. Then she turned and followed her parents out of the room, leaving a trail of broken dreams and shattered expectations in her wake. After they left, several board members actually congratulated us on how we handled the situation. They praised our courage, our integrity, and our commitment to protecting the company. One of them, Mr. Henderson, who'd known my father for 30 years, patted my shoulder and said, "Your dad would be proud, Grant." He always said that the true measure of a leader is how they handle betrayal. Liam and I spent the rest of the evening at our father's favorite bar, the Old Barrel, raising a toast to him and the values he'd instilled in us. It felt good to be together, to have weathered the storm, to have emerged stronger and more united than ever. You know, Liam said as we nursed our whiskeys, Dad always told us that the most valuable asset in business isn't money. It's loyalty. I couldn't have said it better myself. The company's lawyer is drawing up paperwork to ensure Serena can never claim any connection to Caldwell Enterprises or its assets. Not that she'd try. Her social standing in our circles is completely destroyed. She's persona non grata. Some might think the public exposure was too harsh, but in our world, reputation and trust are everything. Serena didn't just try to scam me. She tried to undermine our entire family legacy. She betrayed the core values that Caldwell Enterprises was built on. I'll post another update if anything significant happens. But for now, I'm just relieved it's over. Time to focus on running the company with the one person I know I can always trust, my brother. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Like a tsunami, her carefully constructed life was gone in an instant. Within hours, Serena's carefully curated social media presence was flooded with people who'd been at the dinner, sharing what had happened. Snarky comments, disgusted reactions, and even a few outright insults filled her feeds. Her carefully constructed facade of perfection was collapsing in real time. By midnight, she deleted all her accounts, disappearing from the digital landscape as if she'd never existed. It was a desperate attempt to erase her mistakes, but the internet never forgets. Her parents called the next day, not to apologize for her, but to assure us they wouldn't contest the broken engagement or try to fight for any gifts I'd given her. They were mortified, ashamed, and desperate to salvage what was left of their reputation. "We raised her better than this," her mother said, her voice strained, clearly fighting back tears. "We don't know where we went wrong. They were concerned more about their social standing than their daughter's well-being. They had created a monster and were afraid of its repercussions." Liam and I spent the weekend cleaning out her things from our condo. It was a strangely cathartic experience, like exorcising a demon. We packed up her designer clothes, her expensive shoes, her collection of luxury handbags, each item a reminder of the superficial life she craved. As we boxed up her belongings, Liam found a small, velvet pouch hidden in her jewelry box. Inside was a pawn shop ticket for a diamond necklace I'd given her for her birthday. The one piece of jewelry I thought she actually loved. It was a final, painful reminder of her true nature. Life went on. We had a business to run, a legacy to uphold. We implemented new security measures, tighter background checks on potential partners, and a zero-tolerance policy for any behavior that compromised the company's integrity. We learned from our mistakes and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. It's been a month since the dinner party incident, and I need to share what happened next, because things took an even more dramatic turn. Just when I thought it was all over, Serena pulled her final, desperate move. I was sitting in my office going through project proposals when an email from her popped up in my inbox. The subject line read, "You need to know this." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a single line, "I'm pregnant, Grant. It's your baby." I stared at the screen, not feeling shock or panic, just a weary sense of disbelief. This was Serena, the same woman who had lied, manipulated, and betrayed me at every turn. The woman who would sink to any depth to get what she wanted. This wasn't about a baby. This was her last desperate attempt to regain control, to worm her way back into my life, to exploit the one thing she knew would get my attention, my sense of responsibility. I forwarded the email to Liam with a short message. "Look at this nonsense." He called me immediately, his voice tight with anger. "Did you respond?" "Nope, and I'm not going to," I replied, my voice firm. "She's full of it. She's just trying to manipulate me again. Good, he said. She's probably hoping you'll freak out and go running back to her. Don't give her the satisfaction. But Serena wasn't giving up that easily. Over the next few days, she launched a full-scale attack on multiple fronts. She called my mother, claiming she was pregnant and terrified about what to do. She spun a sob story about being abandoned, alone, and scared, hoping to play on my mother's maternal instincts. My mother, bless her heart, didn't buy it for a second. She'd seen through Serena from the beginning. "If you're pregnant, dear," she said, her voice cool and professional, "I suggest you get a paternity test and leave my son alone." When that didn't work, she reached out to Liam, saying she needed to talk to him about the future of our family. She hinted at a shared responsibility, a need to put the child first, a subtle attempt to drive a wedge between us. Liam shut her down immediately. He told her to get a paternity test and leave us alone. When that didn't work, she turned to her own parents. I later learned through mutual friends that this backfired spectacularly. Her parents, still reeling from the dinner party scandal, had been receiving calls from their social circle, asking uncomfortable questions. They were social pariahs, ostracized by the very people whose approval they craved. After one particularly heated argument, where her father called her a disgrace to the family name, they kicked her out. She was officially on her own. That's when things got really messy. She showed up at my apartment building at 2:00 a.m., pounding on the door and causing a scene. She woke everyone on the floor. The building manager was threatening to call the police. "Grant, please," she sobbed, loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "I have nowhere else to go. We need to talk about the baby." I didn't answer. I just stood behind the door, listening to her desperate pleas, feeling a mixture of pity and disgust. But my neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, a retired judge who'd seen enough drama in her career to spot a fraud, came out and told her she'd call the police if she didn't leave immediately. She wasn't taking any nonsense. Serena screamed at her, calling her every name in the book, but finally stormed off, leaving a trail of tears and broken promises in her wake. The next day, I received a series of increasingly unhinged texts. "You can't ignore me forever. This is your child, too. What are you going to tell them one day? Your mother would be ashamed of how you're treating me. She's always been so nice. This isn't like you. I'll go to the press about how the Carters treat women. I know things about your company that would make headlines. You can't silence me." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded them to our company's legal team, who were documenting everything. They advised me to wait it out, to let her self-destruct. "People showing their true colors often give you the best ammunition against them," Abernathy said. They were right. Within weeks, Serena's desperate attempts to maintain her lifestyle had become the talk of our social circle. She'd been staying on various friends' couches, rotating between them like a worn-out welcome mat, but her welcome wore out quickly when they realized she was just using them to try to reconnect with me or Liam. Her desperation was palpable. She tried to leverage her connections to the Carter family to get a job at a rival development firm, hoping to prove that she didn't need me, that she could make it on her own. But word had spread about her behavior. The whispers followed her like a bad smell, tainting every opportunity. No reputable company would touch her. Her carefully crafted image as a sophisticated businesswoman had crumbled, revealing the ruthless opportunist beneath. The city that once adored her now shunned her, leaving her isolated and alone. The final email I got from her came exactly 1 month after the dinner party. It was a rambling, contradictory mess that perfectly captured her unraveling, a symphony of delusion, anger, and regret. "Grant, I know I messed up, okay? I know I said and did some things that I regret, but you have to understand. I was scared. Everything was changing so fast after your dad died. The pressure was immense. I just wanted to secure our future. Is that so wrong? I wanted us to be set for life. I thought if I secured a leadership role, we would be in a good position, but I see it was wrong." she continued, the blame game in full force, with bits of forced apologies mixed in. And yes, maybe I got too focused on the business and thought the most logical and successful thing to do was align with your brother. He understood me and I felt the same way. I didn't want to see you struggle like that again. Her logic was insane, her excuses pathetic. She wanted sympathy from me? Her lies were laughable. Andrew was just being nice to me, okay? That's all I wanted, to feel safe and understood. You twisted everything. You humiliated me in front of everyone. My life is ruined because of you and your brother and your legal team. She then shifted her blame onto the lie about the baby. And no, I'm not pregnant. The truth is, I never was. I just wanted you to talk to me. That was it. I miss you and us, and the life we had. So I figured if I had your child, you couldn't just run away from me. Then the final knife twist, fueled by pure spite. I thought that being pregnant would keep you close because it's always been about you, hasn't it? You never loved me. You loved the idea of me as a trophy, and I thought it made you happy, and I was so happy too. I was really happy. That was a lie. You're too much of a coward to even face me. You and your precious brother think you're so perfect, so honorable, but you're not. You're just privileged boys who got everything handed to them on a silver platter. Even if you were a regular guy, you would be so lonely, I think. No one can actually understand your pain because you just keep it all bottled up. So go ahead, I hope your company fails. I hope you lose everything just like I did. Then maybe, just maybe, you'll understand how it feels to have nothing. To be nothing. The email ended with one last petty jab. P.S. That Cartier bracelet you gave me? The one you were so proud of? I sold it. Hope that hurts. I actually laughed reading it. The bracelet she mentioned? It was a replica. A cheap knockoff I bought online when I first started suspecting her true nature. The real one, the genuine Cartier bracelet, was safely stored in my office safe, a testament to my growing awareness of her deception. Even her attempt at a parting shot revealed her inherent materialism. It confirmed what I already knew. She was incapable of genuine emotion, driven only by greed and self-preservation. The truth is, she never loved me. She loved my money, my status, and the potential for a life of luxury and power. When that was threatened, her true nature emerged, revealing the calculating, heartless opportunist she always was. Last week, I heard through mutual friends that she's moved to Houston, trying to start fresh. Apparently, she's telling people there that she's an independent business consultant who left New York because it was too toxic. She's spinning a new narrative, reinventing herself for a new audience. The reality? None of her former contacts would recommend her for any positions in our industry. Her reputation is mud. She's burned every bridge, alienated every ally, and destroyed her own credibility. As for me, life has never been better. Caldwell Enterprises is thriving under Liam's and my leadership. We just closed our biggest deal yet, a sustainable urban development project that would have made our dad proud. We're not just building buildings, we're building communities, creating opportunities, and making a positive impact on the world. It's what my father always wanted. Our team is stronger than ever. We've learned from our mistakes, and we've implemented new policies to protect the company from future opportunists. We've tightened security, increased oversight, and fostered a culture of loyalty and trust. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, family, and the importance of seeing people for who they really are. It forced me to confront my own naivete, my own desire to believe in the best in everyone, even when the evidence suggested otherwise. My dad used to say that character reveals itself under pressure. Serena just proved him right. I'm dating again. Casually, this time. I'm taking my time, being more cautious, and paying closer attention to the red flags. I'm looking for someone who values me for who I am, not what I can provide. Someone who understands that true partnership isn't about what you can get, but what you can build together. Someone who is as comfortable with the average grant as the wealthy one. Liam and I are closer than ever. We've always been close, but this experience has forged an even deeper bond between us. We're not just brothers, we're partners, confidants, and each other's biggest supporters. Last night, over drinks at our dad's favorite bar, the Old Barrel, Liam raised his glass and said, "To Dad." He taught us that the best defense against gold diggers is a brother who has your back. I couldn't have said it better myself. He knew exactly how to make me laugh. We reminisced about my father's life, his passion, his vision, and his unwavering commitment to his family and his company. We vowed to honor his legacy by running Caldwell Enterprises with integrity, compassion, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. The saga of Serena Caldwell is officially closed. The book is shut. The page has turned, and I'm finally free to move on, to learn from the past, and to build a future worthy of the Caldwell name. I have my brother, my best friend, by my side. So here's to second chances, to the power of family, and to the importance of always trusting your gut.